Hello again, Gooners! How does it feel being in third place? The season's over, of course, but it's not over here. We're going to be keeping you up to date, or I'm going to be keeping you up to date on the latest transfer news as and when it reaches me. I'm not saying I've got a teleprinter giving it out like score lines, but you know, I'll try and stay in contact with the powers that be and the powers that are never going to be, just to find out what's going on. And you know, I'll be generally looking at the rumour mill as well throughout the summer. But first of all, of course, on the Loose Cannon vodcast, vidcast, podcast, whatever you like, cast, got to talk about the West Brom game. Bit of a roller coaster ride, a microcosm, some people have called it. You know, it's just typical of Arsenal season, really. This whole idea that we score a goal early on, then we go 2-1 down, and then we have this. I would like to call it a magnificent comeback, but in reality, it was more about a goalkeeping display, the like of which I've never seen. How Martin Fuller can hold his head high ever again after that performance beggars belief. But it wasn't the only poor goalkeeping performance on the day. Of course, Manchester City managed to clinch the title, and good luck to them, on the back of another poor goalkeeping display, although it wasn't anything of the level of what we saw at the Hawthorns. But the display by Paddy Kenny in the QPR goal, again, was the kind of performance that will have Sir Alex Ferguson wondering what's going on. And the connection between the two goalkeeping performances, you might say, if you're of that kind of mindset, you might say it's interesting that both clubs are backed to some degree by Middle Eastern money. Obviously, Arsenal to a lesser degree, because we're sponsored by Emirates, the airline from Dubai, and of course the Emirates Stadium is it's going to be renamed almost certainly at some point in the not too distant future. The Etihad Stadium, obviously the home of Manchester City, and been an awful lot of money from Abu Dhabi keeping that club afloat, and much more than that, of course, helping them to invest in top players, which is something we all want Arsenal to do. We'll see whether that actually happens this summer. Hopefully it will. Podolski's already here. We know that. We've spent something in the region of £10 million to bring him in. We certainly need more players. Judging by that performance against West Brom, is certainly nowhere near good enough. Robin van Persie, we don't know if he's going to stay. When asked after the match, will he, won't he, it didn't seem too clear what he's going to do. He said, we'll see. And there's going to be contract talks held sometime this week. My prediction is the Robin van Persie situation will turn into a saga, and we probably won't know anything until July about whether he's going to stay or leave. And to be quite frank with you, I won't be that surprised if he does leave. I hope he doesn't. Meanwhile, we have to question what's going on the field. Obviously, our squad seemed down to the bare bones, as it were, to use a Harry Redknapp phrase, which isn't always popular in gunner circles. But when we got Szczesny in goal, playing with a shoulder injury and not really playing his best, he did okay, I think, against West Brom. Probably cost us 2 points against Norwich. But you can't blame the guy. He's getting injected before matches, so he's playing completely through the pain barrier. Obviously, I'd rather have him in goal than anyone else we've got on our books as far as goalkeepers are concerned. I quite like Manoni, but we haven't seen enough of him, and a lot of fans are not convinced by Manoni. I'm not sure. I think he might have the makings of a good goalkeeper, personally, but maybe even next season we won't know for sure he's going to be ready. And the point is, we've got a lot of inexperience in the goalkeeping department, which is why I think we have to invest in somebody like Thomas Sorensen. It's not going to be as cheap as he would have been. He's 35 years of age at Stoke City. He signed a new deal in December, so he's going to cost a fair bit. I think he's out of contract around about 2014. So even though he's 35, he's going to be a little bit pricey, and we obviously hate spending money on anybody, it seems. And talking of injections, how Theo Walcott got on the field after recently limping off in a game, I think it was a Wigan game, with a hamstring injury, and next thing I know, he's back on the pitch before the season's over, and we all knew full well that if you get a hamstring injury, that the chances of a comeback are limited, to say the least. So Theo was back, not at his best. He came on as a sub. Some of the fans got on his back to some extent, but they were more on the back of Aaron Ramsey, actually, who also came on as a sub, and that wasn't a popular substitution where I was watching the game anyway. So, well, Rambo is completely out of form, actually. Let's hope he gets back to his best next season, because he did start the season quite well, so let's not lose sight of that fact. And the one thing about Rambo, though, I think he's being played out of position. I really feel he's much more of an attacking midfielder than he is a defensive midfielder. So I'd push him further up the park and have him playing off Robin van Persie, presuming Robin van Persie is going to be there next season, or possibly Podolski if Podolski is going to be an out-and-out striker. But I'd push Rambo right up and not give him too much to do defensively, because I think that's not the strongest part of his game. He's not good when it comes to ball retention in our defensive third, and he's quite prone to giving the ball away on the halfway line as well. He's done that a lot. And which brings me to my point. I feel we really need to bring in a new Arteta, because Arteta's the kind of guy, he's about 30 now, and he's going to play about 29 games a season, which leaves us 9 games to have a replacement. And quite honestly, Arteta's not one of those sort of players who looks like a world beater, but he's absolutely essential to this particular Arsenal side, because he adds maturity and solidity and positional play, and no one else seems to have those abilities. Alex Song, well, he's a decent enough player, but you know, I think his work rate he's a bit suspect at times. I watched him walking back when he should have been running back. I'm just not overly impressed with his work rate. His passing is hit and miss. Sometimes he does supply some good passes to Robin van Persie, but let's not forget, I think the main supply line for Robin van Persie, statisticians, you might want to look into it, is the supply that comes from Theo Walcott. I think Alex Song probably is the second, is second when it comes to providing assists for Robin van Persie. But nonetheless, Alex Song obviously has had a reasonable season. I don't want to say anything other than that. But then, you know, when you're looking at who should play alongside Alex Song, it's got to be Arteta. So if it's not Arteta, because he might be out injured, like he is typically for 9 games a season, 9 league games that is, who's going to play in his place? I don't think Francis Coquelin is the answer, not based on what we saw against West Brom. I love Coquelin, I think he's a great player, or a great player in the making, should I say. But he's been looking pretty good in defensive positions, like at right back, as a replacement for Sagna. He's done a great job. So hats off to Coquelin. I don't think that was one of his best games against West Brom. And then who else is there? Well, as I've already mentioned, there's Aaron Ramsey, and he doesn't really play the kind of role that Arteta does, and indeed I don't believe he should. So I think we've got to look on the transfer front at potential players to bring in, and the player that just came to mind, he's been linked with Arsenal before. How serious our interest was in the player, I'm not altogether sure. Personally, I don't think this is an Arsene Wenger style signing, but I think it would be great for the team. And the player I'm talking about is Mark Noble of West Ham. He's only 25. He's like an English water carrier, if you like, a sort of Didier Deschamps type. Of course, he was called the water carrier by Eric Cantona, quite disparagingly. But you do need that sort of Claude Makelele kind of guy in midfield if you're going to be successful as a football team. And Arteta is that kind of guy with a bit more flair, I believe. But just solid. But Mark Noble's got all the grit that's required for that central midfield role. He lacks a little bit of class, but he's a decent English player, and I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him join the club. And like I said before, he has been linked. He has been linked with a move to us. Another player's been heavily linked, not for the first time, is Solomon Kalou. He could possibly move on after the Champions League final. We obviously are rooting for Chelsea, or some of us are. Not all Arsenal fans are rooting for Chelsea because, well, I suppose the thinking is we don't want Chelsea to be the first London club to win the Champions League. I'm not necessarily in agreement with that. I just now that we don't need to worry about Champions League qualification, why not see another English side win it, providing it's not a team that you hate, for instance. And I certainly don't hate Chelsea. Anyway, so on my shopping list, and I hope Mr. Wenger agrees with it, I would have Marouane Fellaini of Everton. He cost them about £12 million, so he's not going to come cheap, and chances are he's not going to come over to Arsenal at all. But another Belgian international to go with the other one we've got, Thomas Vermaelen. Vermaelen obviously not been in form lately since he moved back to centre back. He was doing better at left back, out of position, which is strange. Bit of a sort of a Coquelin phenomenon going on there. And well, anyway, I'd love to see Fellaini coming in, but in reality, we might have a chance, of getting Jack Rodwell. We could get him in, cheaper than Fellaini anyway, because Fellaini's going to cost, I reckon, something north of £18 million, possibly even more than that. Jack Rodwell, I reckon we could get him for 10 million. And another Everton player I'd love to see join the club is Phil Jagielka. He can even play as a standby goalkeeper if necessary. And talking of goalkeepers, obviously Thomas Sorensen is a goalkeeper we've had some pretty heavy links with him in the past, and as I mentioned before, his contractual position means that the chances we can bring him in is quite remote, really. So yeah, it's all been about goalkeepers for me this weekend, with Paddy Kenny and Martin Fulham hitting the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So let's hope we can hit the headlines for the right reasons, and you can hit those headlines right here on the Loose Cannon YouTube. Don't forget, check out my website, my blog. It's www.theloosecannon.co.uk. And well, hope to hear from you all soon with your comments and so on. And I'll try to get back as soon as I can if there's any transfer news breaking regarding Arsenal Football Club. Until next time, bye.